Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. So the Stellar Blade collab will be put into the archives, and both Eve and Raven will be rerunning. They are limited collab units, so when Eve comes in the next couple of days, then Raven a week after that, those will be the only times you have to get them until they rerun again, because it is a shift up property. But I just want to make this video quickly to just let anybody who wasn't around back when the collab ran the first time what the units are like, what they're used for, and if they are truly worth pulling for. Let's go. He's coming out first. We'll start with Eve, and here she is. If you want to get a look at her, this is mine. So the most important skill will be your skill 1 because it buffs the crit rate, and crit rate is really important for her. She also has a bonus effect when the enemy's electric code, so she's really only for electric Iron Weak bosses, which are electric. So only for Iron Weak Union Raid or Solo Raid, or I suppose also Coordinated Operation. But yeah, mostly Union Raid and Solo Raid. So she wants crit rate, and here are my lines. You'll notice I'm gonna crit rate because my gear isn't very good. So performance-wise, I understand she's supposed to be about as good, like a little bit better than Red Hood, when the boss does not have parts. So that's really important. Also, my Red Hood is terrible. So even though my Eve is very mid, she'll do better than this Red Hood because this Red Hood is just bad. Now, if the boss has parts though, if they're around the same level of gear, then the Red Hood is gonna outpace Eve by quite a bit. So it really just depends. On top of that, Red Hood can be used outside of Iron Week, but even now, Red Hood isn't really used outside of that anyway. So Eve's strictly only going to be a solo raid / sometimes union raid boss killer for Iron. And if you notice here, these are all the Iron Burst 3s that I currently have, which are all the ones I can have, and yeah, they're kind of hurting. When you seriously consider just Sato or Laplace as legitimate picks for your solo raid, you are struggling pretty hard. Regular Snow White, who I don't have built by the way yet, still sees legitimate play in solo raids right now. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is that because Eve's debuffs are on the skill 1 and skill 2, you can actually use her as an off burst. So let's say you want to do this and maybe add a little DPS, let's say Milk here, and you can do that and just have Eve off burst and try to do her thing that way. Perfectly legitimate. Now, a lot harder to do in solo raid because in 5 teams, and as you saw, there is a pretty severe lack of just Iron units that you're gonna want to use. Even among Burst 1 and Burst 2, obviously I'm missing Helm, Aquamarine in my roster, unfortunately, so I don't have her. But yeah, even Burst 2 Nikke's, the only one you'll be using really is Agent Bunny. And Burst 1 Nikke's is gonna be Leader, really, and that's really it right now. If we're I guess this Hakana too. You'll definitely use her also. She's pretty good, but everybody else, doesn't really see any usage. So it is kind of difficult to split up your Iron DPSs in solo raid, but for things like Unit Raid, where you're only going to bring 3 teams, much more viable there, I would say. But yeah, she's definitely going to be more on the acceptable side of damage. But just to show you, let's go through a fight with her, and we'll also do a test fight with another character. So I'll show the results. Let's show the team first we're going to use. We'll just use this team right here to keep it very, very simple. So we will just go in here. We will always burst first with the Rapid though, just because that is going to give us the most damage overall for the fight. And because this fight is going to be pretty boring, I'm just going to go and skip through all of this and show the results screen right now. So this is the results right here, and you see that Red did most of the damage, Eve doing about 2.45, and Nice about 2. So, this is to be expected though. We knew that Eve wasn't going to do a ton of DPS, but she does buff other units' DPS, so she is a little more viable in teams that have more iron units in it. It's just that there aren't a lot of iron units. That's really what there is, and some of them are collabs and limiteds. So good luck with that. So next up is going to be Raven, and my Raven is a little more invested than my other characters, so she's at a bit of advantage for me. She's 10-7-7 with her first skill being the most important one in the game. I mean for her in the game. Here is her gear with her line, so some elemental, some max ammo attack. No element there, unfortunately. Crit damage, some elemental damage, and some elemental charge damage, you know, which is a rocket launcher, but even then, she's mostly a sustained damage character, so this doesn't really help her a lot. Max ammo is okay for her, so not the best lines, but workable, definitely something we can build off of. Now, like Eve, she can be used as an off burst too, because she doesn't have to burst to do damage, because like I said, her kit is sustained damage and damage to parts, and destroying parts will increase her sustained damage, but she can burst to do even more damage. Unlike Eve, she's not a damage taken buffer. She's a little more selfish in what she does in destroying parts. However, she doesn't need parts on a boss to be good. Also, unlike Eve, who is really only good against electric units or iron weak enemies, simply because a lot of Eve's kit revolves around debuffing captures that are iron weak. Eve's just relies on parts and doesn't even rely on parts. She can just do whatever she wants to anything. To the point where she's actually one of the better neutral DPSs in the game. Not quite the best neutral DPS, like obviously units like Referee Red Hood, Snow White Heavy Arms, probably Neo Neon now too, are simply better neutral DPSs. But Raven is no slouch in that category. So just like last time, we're just gonna go in with this team right here. We're gonna hit auto and just see how we do. Maybe not the most optimal setup for Raven, but we want to be fair with the characters we're going to be testing today. And because again, this fight's going to be pretty boring, just me sitting here watching this, I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so here are the results right here. We see that last time we did about 12, this time we did about 13. So, you know, a little bit better. Now, what's important to note, though, is that we looked at results here, that Raven's numbers are much closer to Referee Red Hood's, and that Referee Red Hood's numbers went down. And this is because, like I said, Eve debuffs the opponent. So, units like Referee Red Hood will just do a lot more damage. So, Eve is kind of a pseudo support and DPS at the same time. Well, Raven is basically just a pure DPS, and you see right there, you put up some pretty good numbers right there. Now, I do think if my Eve was a little bit better, that these results with this particular team would be a lot closer. Now, I say this, but are you always going to use Eve with your Referee Red Hood? Maybe. You know, it's definitely a viable thing to do if you want to spread out your other off bursts. So, like, maybe you want Main Anchor, Main Mast in one team. Maybe you're going to want your Privity in another team, a Helmet in another team, and then you have your final team be like your Miranda plus your Burst 1 CDR in that team. And yeah, something like that I think is going to be perfectly viable. So Eve as a off burst, or maybe sometimes an on burst, it just depends, for a Referee Red Hood team, definitely seems like a really good way to go. And then you can put Raven into a, like, maybe your team 2 and have her do her own work with a different support. Because, yeah, like, even though the Referee Red Hood, you know, is a better unit, and my Referee Red Hood is much more heavily invested than Raven, you know, this number is, it's very respectable, if I'm honest with you guys. And then just for a little bit of a control group, we will have a Treasure Laplace here. So here are the stats. You know, not amazing. We have some elemental damage, a tiny bit of attack, I think some charge speed. 779. She's not quite good enough of a unit for me to get to 10, even though she is really good in PvP. So I am kind of debating if I want to do this or not. I'm kind of holding off on it at the moment. So I would have liked to show you this with Red Hood instead, but like I said, my Red Hood is like really bad, so it's kind of worthless. I also kind of thought about Chisato, but Chisato is another collab character, so you know, not a lot of people are gonna have her. I know a lot of people actually skipped her when the collab ran, but yeah. So I'm going to go through this and I'll show the results when it is done. So here are these results right here. So about 10.9 overall, and a lot of that's probably chalked up to the extra 10% that Eve gives to electric enemies or iron weak across the board, which would probably equal, you know, like right here you see you do about 1.1 bill more, that reaches that 12-ish that we had, and pretty equivalent overall overloads to Laplace. I think Laplace's might be a little bit better than Eve's, and maybe having a tiny bit more investment too. I will have to double check with that, but that's what I have to say. So Treasure Laplace, you know, normal Red Hood, Eve, looking to be maybe around the same, with Laplace probably just like a half step behind. But yeah, so those are just some of the results you might want to find. Obviously, like I said, you're gonna want to mix and match teams to, you know, to go on. So like maybe a team for your team 1 will be something like this. So let's get Eve back, and then maybe one of the Libers 3 does some damage. It just had to be an iron DPS. It can be anything, because Eve actually, as long as the enemy is weak against iron, or electric code I should say, they have a damage taken debuff. And as far as I know, those do not stack. So they just put a good neutral damage dealer there, like say, where is she? Snow White Heavy Arms. So maybe this will be your team 1, right? Or maybe you want to take advantage of Anise's buff. So you'll take like Neon, something like that. Especially for Iron, like I said, because Iron doesn't have a lot of strong DPSs you always want to use. Or maybe some DPSs you don't build. Like I don't have regular Snow White build. And am I going to build her? You know, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, right? So, and then maybe your team 2 will be something like, let's say you take in your Helm as your off burst, and now you have your Raven as your main burst. You can have your burst 1 as your Siren, and then you can have a burst 2 as maybe Nayuta, and then your burst 3 for like your other one can be anything else really. So because we used Neon the last one, Snow White Heavy Arms, and this could be maybe your team 2, and then, you know, after that you make your team 3, like maybe you'll make something with true damage. So you're looking at there something like Laplace. If you have them, obviously you'll be using Akina, Chisato on this team probably. And then, you know, a burst 1 and burst 2. So whatever ones you still have going on. So like Treasure Moran, Leader, something like that. And then obviously your last teams, you know, maybe you'll use the a Miranda comp, right? So you have Miranda, your other burst 1 in this case will probably be Rouge or Decola Wife. And then in this case, you will crit fish, so you'll be, oh, not crit fish, right? Because you have 100% crit with the Miranda. So as long as you have the right stats, then you can put in something like your Snow White, or, you know, just something you want to do big burst damage with. And yeah, like those are your solo raid teams, probably. Now, some new characters are going to come out that are Iron, like Mint, we do know, is an Iron support unit. So we'll see how that changes the dynamic. But as of right now, those are just the main use cases for the units here. Now, with all that said, do I think these units are worth pulling right now? after they've already been out and we know what they're like and with their power creep and everything like that? Short answer is yes. Long answer is yes. However, if I could only get one of the two units, it would be Raven. Raven is just her personal damage is a lot better, and she is her kit is just better for bossing. However, I do think that both units will still see play for quite a while, at least for Iron Week solo slash unit raid. Um, Eve only for that content. Raven, like I said, is a really strong neutral DPS too, as we saw in the overall fights. So with Eve, um, what really helps her is the skill 1 and this damage taking debuff on the enemy, which I do think is one of is pretty underrated, right? A very nice debuff to have that helps the entire team. Remember, again, the team does not have to be all iron. Everybody benefits, which is really, really nice. So, however, it only affects electrical targets, so only on those fights will that be really useful at all. As far as Raven goes, though, again, much more flexible. Her kit is just better for bossing, and her personal damage is good enough where you can bring her like as your first 3 on other element fights too. Just a little more simple to use also. Like both units do require a bit of investment. I would say Raven a little more than Eve does, but like nothing crazy, right? Nothing you really have to be breaking the bank about. I don't think. Um, I mean, that's really all to it. They are collab units. They are shift up own properties. So chances are they will rerun again. I say chances are, no guarantee, obviously. If you can get these units right now, like you have enough saved up, try to do it. I know we just had 3.5 and it's actually still going on. And that, we just tried to get both Nice and Neon. So if you have, some gems, maybe, use some of those if you need to. Try not to ticket them if you can help it because they are not 1%. They are 2%. So you kind of want to save these for the programs and the overthreats that come. But you also maybe you'll be pulling for mint and you'll get tickets and you can spend those tickets that way. You'll have to see what you personally want to do, but I would try to get one of each. That's really all you need to get. Obviously, if you have the means, and you want to get more of them. But yeah. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. Been a good one. Till next time.